Hi there. Today I'm going to teach you all about assessment of diverse learners. This is class number 2 for us. And I have for our cover right here an image with several words that are related to the word assessment. Just take a second to look at some of those words. Yeah. I want you to have a piece of paper with you as you go through this class. If you have a little piece of paper and or a notepad of some kind, you're going to need that for your discussion thread, okay? I want you to grab a paper and a pen, and I want you to jot down one word from this cover right here, from this image, that makes you think of the word assessment, okay? And we're going to be sharing that word in our discussion thread after class, after you watch this video. All right? Perfect. Our topics for today are, what is assessment? Ooh, that is a good question. You're like, ooh, Angela, I don't know. Or maybe that's a very easy question. You might be thinking, what is assessment? And then the next question comes, what is authentic assessment? What is authentic? And then authentic assessment and diverse learners, right? That's just a very unique combination there. Let's talk about that. And then assessment in early childhood, in elementary school, because we know it starts early. And then how infants and young children should be assessed. And then how young adults should be assessed, like middle school, high school. And then even like college and undergraduate students, graduate students, why are we assessed the way we are assessed? And like things don't change. Why don't we change things, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. We have the power. So the first thing to talk about, in my last video, I talked about how we need to know ourselves, right? We need to know our biases. We need to know our own, ourselves, our values, who we are inside, so that our practices as as educators, it's more neutral. Our practices are neutral, so that we're not biased and we are influencing the kids in a way that is not the right way, right? So the first thing I want you to be thinking about is you need to get to know you, yourself. Who are you? So if I was gonna ask myself, who is Angela? Who's this person that teaches students, right? What are her values? What matters to me? Where am I from? What are the things that I think are important, right? What are my cultural values, my morals? Like, think about all those things. And then I want you to be thinking about getting to know your students. Who are they? Sometimes you get a group of students, maybe you have like 10 students, maybe you have 20, maybe you have 30, have a full class of students. How do you get to know all of them? How do you serve all of them? How do you assess all of them? Okay, so you need to be ready to like really do a good job, okay? And do a good job in a sense of like meeting the families, like knowing what they need, not only academically, but personally, so that you can meet them where they are and build on their strengths and move them forward academically, personally, emotionally, socially. And that's what education is about. It's about just actually helping students in every single way possible. So I have this image right in the middle of my slide and it says, who are you? So in the middle I have character, and then I have thoughts, feelings, your values, beliefs, and behaviors. So I just want you to think about that. There's no answer right now for this, but I want you to be thinking about that. That's huge. It's a huge part of this class, is to know yourself and know your students, okay? One activity that I usually do with my students is a name tent, okay? Like I would have you guys do like first and last name in the middle, what you teach, where you teach, what, you know, 3 things that describe your teaching, why you're here right now. And then you could tell me like your name, where you work, your educational background, you know, where you studied, where you're from, like why you want to become a teacher, why you're a teacher already, like what influenced you in a sense, right? And then also like right here, something unusual and interesting about you, a symbol that describes you. You can add those things to your Padlet from last week, right? The Padlet was super cool. So I'm sure that you can like make it even better as you you know, as you go, as you learn about yourself, as you develop your class, your sense for this class, and think about assessment and think about your students. Do that, right? Now with your students, how could you do this name tent? Maybe change this name tent to something else. Maybe what could be like about their like favorite toy. It could be about their favorite food. I mean, you can change it up. It could be about their favorite content at school, their favorite, you know, activity or hobby or something. You can get really creative about this. So just know that you can get really, really like, you know, creative is the word with all those components that I have on my screen with your students. All right, you can really get creative with them. And the reason why I added this to this presentation is because I'm trying to follow the idea of funds of knowledge. Funds of knowledge is a body of research that talks about how you need to know your students' funds of knowledge, like what they come with, so that you can understand them and better serve them academically in a school setting and even outside of school, right? So it's what they bring with them as people to their educational experiences. So think about that, adapt this activity, and do something with them. Now, I know I asked you to take notes. I would like you to write down some of those things for me from this name tent, okay? Why you became a teacher, something unusual about you, to share during the discussion post, okay? Something unusual, maybe your symbol, like maybe I would share the Brazilian flag as my symbol with you, right? That might be a good one. So then I can talk about Brazil, about my language, about, you know, where I'm from, about my values, okay? So think about that and maybe add those things to your Padlet. All right, so question for you. Now moving on. On your paper, jot down the answers to those 2 questions. What assessments are you familiar with? Could be for any age, from preschool, toddler age, to elementary school, middle school, high school. You can say, oh, I know the Smarter Balance standard test, or you can say the Woodcock-Munoz assessment of English, or you can say the ELPA test, or you can say, I mean, what assessments are you familiar with? Oh, I'm familiar with the DIBELS. I mean, tell me about assessments, or maybe it can be a classroom assessment. It can be any assessment, classroom-based. It doesn't have to be standardized test. What assessments are you familiar with? Now I'm gonna stop talking so that I don't give you all the answers, right? And then the second question is, why should we assess students? What is the purpose of assessment? So why are we assessing students so much every single day in our classrooms or, you know, in our early centers? Like, why are we doing that? So I would like you to pause the video right now, answer those 2 questions to the best of your abilities. And then you're gonna be adding that to the discussion thread, okay? Okay, pause your video. Perfect. Now that you answered the questions, and we're going to be posting that to the discussion thread at the end of this class, I want you to think about English language learners, okay? English language learners are kids that are learning English, students that are learning English, or adults that are learning English. Learners of all ages, right? From all different countries. So what are things that we know about language learners? So I'm a language learner myself. I started learning English. I have to say started because I'll never finish. I'll never end this journey of learning English, right? What do you know about English language learners in a sense that you could share with us? Like, I know I'll never stop learning English. So I started when I was 12, and it's gonna be a lifelong learning experience for me. I literally learn English every single day of my life, like every single day, like like that, just like that. I just have to. I learn a word, I learn a sound, I learn a sentence, I learn something that I have not learned before. So pause your video one more time and answer this question. What do you know about English language learners? And you're gonna actually answer that when you go to the discussion thread as well. All right? Perfect. I want to continue this class by talking about the assessment cycle, okay? The assessment cycle is a very important cycle because this particular image summarizes what assessment is about. Assessment is, I'm going to say this a couple of times, 1,000% that it doesn't even exist. 1,000,000,000% related to teaching. So planning your instruction, so instruction and assessment, do that with your hands. And then connect. So teaching and assessment are connected. You would never forget this. You're thinking, my silly professor are in front of her computer right now, and she's on YouTube. And she has a video of herself with her hands like this, saying teaching and assessment. And she's doing the silly movement of putting those two hands together. Yes, I am. Because I cannot tell you enough how important it is to understand the connection between teaching and assessment, okay? It's like they go together. There is a big disconnect when I see kids failing a test. The whole class fails a test and the teacher doesn't understand why they failed. Well, you didn't teach them. Or you thought you taught them and then you gave them a test in a modality of learning, of assessment that doesn't match your teaching. Ah, is that so hard to believe, to understand? Principals need to understand that that is huge. That if you're the kids, if you have a teacher during the PLC time that is the kids are like failing miserably, there's something either wrong with the teaching or with the assessment. And if the teacher is a great teacher, ditch the assessment, change the assessment. Or if the assessment is wonderful, well, let's solve the teaching problem right here. What is the team doing that teacher is not doing? Or what is, and if the one teacher is being successful, well, let's look at what that teacher is doing that the other teachers are not. It's all about collaboration and learning. If the teachers in the PLCs, the professional learning communities, PLCs stand for professional learning communities. If they learn like students, if we're treating the PLCs like a group of students learning something for like planning, assessing, and we're learning with that from that experience, if we're doing that with the teachers, then it's a perfect system. Because if we're not learning anything from one another, what are we doing? Right? So The first step of this image right here on my screen is plan. You plan an instruction the way that you think that the kids need. So you're gonna pre-assess the students, know what they know and what they don't know. You're gonna teach. The blue is implement, means teach. You teach them the content, you do your best lessons, you do amazing work. That you know what to do, you know how to do it, you do it. Then you assess them. And then the red is, you see the report, you see what happens, you see the results, and then you revise your teaching. And then you know what you do again? You start over. You're like, what, Angela? I just taught that lesson. I'm gonna do it again? Yes, because if you don't have 100% of your kids learning and you're okay with that, that's not okay with me. It shouldn't be okay with you, because every student has the right to have the opportunity to know what they're being taught. They have the right to learn. So you shouldn't settle for just half of your class knowing, the other half of the class not knowing. I understand that there's time constraints that you have to move on because there's another unit, but somehow you have to be able to continue to incorporate that learning that wasn't explicitly taught again and again somehow, so that student can still be learning that content somehow, either with you, from another teacher, tutoring session, from the paraeducator, from an RTI model, from a response to intervention model. Maybe you're gonna have intervention time during the day. You need to have something in place to reach every single student every single time. That's really important. Sorry, I got really passionate about it because every student matters. Every single student matters. Let's create a hashtag. Hashtag every single student matters. This should be a movement, right? Am I right? I think I am. Now going back to assessment. What are the types of assessments then? We need to do a good job, right? So let's get started talking about how we can do it. How can we connect our curriculum, our teaching, and our assessment and make everything awesome? So there are many different ways that you can do that. You can do it informally or formally, right? Informally means you're casually gonna be watching the student's behavior. You're going to be grading them like with thumbs up, show me 5 if you know, show me 3 if you kind of don't know, 1 if you need more, explanation, or just kind of informally. You're going around, you're assessing them, or you have them do whiteboards. They can show you how much they know. They go thumbs up like that, nobody can see, or like that. You can just get creative. Have little things on their desk, like red means no, green means yes, we learned. Like, figure out systems in your classroom to let them show you that they need more help with something, okay? Formal ways would be more like standardized tests, published tests, maybe like, paper, pencil tests and stuff like that. Teacher-made tests are more formal, right? They don't have to be, but they can be. And then graded formal presentations, more like, oh my goodness, we have this rubric, and it's more like formal, right? Usually those grades end up in their report card. But it doesn't have to be this formal. It can be formal and informal, right? Somehow. Now we have formative assessments and summative assessments. So formative assessments, remember the word form. You're forming your opinion about their learning. So it's assessment for learning. It's used to guide your instruction. It's ongoing, right? Throughout your instruction, and it match your objectives. What are the kids learning at the end? So it's connected to your teaching, right? Summative is at the end. It's the sum of everything. It's assessment of learning. So you wait until the end of the unit and you evaluate your whole instruction. It's not like little by little, it's like at the end. End of the unit course of study is an example, and also match your instruction. So the trend here is Match your instruction. Don't teach some crazy stuff and assess something else. Just leaving it out there. So then we have diagnostics. That would be your pre-assessment. So you should know, before you do all the other assessments, you should know what students know and what they need, right? It makes no sense to teach a unit not knowing what they know and what they don't know, because they might know a lot or they might just know a little bit, right? Let's watch this quick video right now about formative, summative assessments and diagnostic, okay? Let's see.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus now bundled together. The greatest stories and characters, the largest streaming TV library, and exclusive sports. Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN.
Let's compare diagnostic versus formative versus summative. How are they similar and how are they different? So, why should you implement each assessment? Diagnostic assessments will inform teachers of student achievement gaps and other academic abilities. Formative assessments will help teachers recognize when students are stuck during instruction. Summative assessments will measure whether a student has mastered a large quantity of material. When should you implement each assessment? Well, diagnostics are often given the first day of class, mostly before starting a course or a new unit. Formative assessments are administered directly during the teaching process, and summative assessments are given last, at the end of the unit or the end of the period or course. What are some examples of each assessment? Diagnostics can usually be found in the course textbook. Texts usually have pre-course tests. Formative assessments can be as simple as using student questioning techniques. And a summative example can be a class thesis paper. Next, how should you use each assessment? Diagnostic assessments can be used to plan future lessons and to differentiate students into groups. Formative assessments are best used to make teaching decisions on the fly. Should I keep explaining or should I move on? Summative assessments should be used to judge whether or not a student can advance through a course. Right now, I would just like to say thank you for your time and please subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Let's see. Perfect. Okay. Let me share my screen again. All right, so that was a great video, really quick, and just kind of gave us some examples and just kind of compared and contrasted all three. And just think about this for a second. The most important thing to think about is learning, right? Keep calm and focus on learning. Don't forget that. It's not about assessing. It's about learning. Assessment should be one of the things that you do to know, to guide you to the process of teaching them and if they learned. But your focus should be on learning, on their learning, on teaching and making sure that they've learned that content, that they're smarter than the day before, right? And it can be really interesting in most cases because everyone learns differently. So how do you know that? It's always different. It's always messy. It's never like linear, and it's not an easy process. So I know your job is not easy at all. I know. And then don't forget to go to Canvas and look at the syllabus. And if you have questions, go back to the Ask 3 Before Me discussion thread post that I explained last class. If you have a question, a concern, ask 3 people before me. Make sure that you're looking at that thread daily so that you can see if you can help somebody or have one of your questions answered by somebody. And look at, some of our due dates and what's coming up next in the syllabus. And you got this. This is wonderful. Now, a question that cannot be answered really easily, right? If I tell you that I want to eat authentic Mexican food today for dinner, what is it that I'm going to have? Can I have Taco Bell for dinner? Is it authentic Mexican food? I don't know, right? But if I'm thinking authentic Mexican food, do I have to go down like down the border of Arizona and go down to Mexico and have authentic Mexican food? That would be the perfect authentic Mexican food. But I could go to Fiesta restaurant here around the corner, and that would be the most authentic I could get of Mexican food close to my house, right? So authentic means closer to real, the real deal as possible. So the question that I want you to add to your discussion thread is, define for me what authentic assessment means to you. What does authentic assessment mean? Because we've been assessing kids for as long as I remember, forever, right? What does it actually mean? Possible definition of that could be a form of assessment in which students are asked to perform real-world tasks that demonstrate meaningful application of essential knowledge and skills. Real-world tasks. So if you're teaching a math unit, for example, and students are learning also to connect science, you can build a garden and have them measure the wood to build the garden and measure the space in between each of the seeds and then track the growth of the plants. That's all math. And then the science of the growth of the plant and the watering and the sun and the energy. I mean, you could do a whole thing. This is authentic assessment of learning when you're assessing what they've learned from that experience. That's authentic teaching, authentic learning, authentic assessment. Right? So this table at the bottom right here is going to show you the difference between traditional assessment versus authentic. Take a look at it for a second. So right here on the right side, we have authentic assessment promotes integration of various written and performance measures. So integration. Relies on direct measures of target skills. Encourages divergent thinking in generating possible answers. It says, goal is to enhance development of meaningful skills. Assessment directs curriculum. Emphasis on ensuring proficiency at real-world tasks, promotes how knowledge, provides an examination of learning over time, emphasizes cooperation, really good one, prepares students for ambiguities and exceptions that are found in realistic problem settings, and priority on the learning sequence or process. On the other side, that's it. It's the opposite. So let's do more of that authentic side right there. It can be better though. We can discuss this next class again. Now, what does authentic assessment have to do with all learners? The assessment of in early education, early childhood education, elementary school, infants, young children, how should they be assessed? How should middle school students be assessed? How should high schoolers be assessed, right? We should be doing more real life connection assessments. And as we go through our chapters, we're going to be talking about specific ways that we can do that, okay? This is just for us to start this conversation. Really important to just start bringing it up. In my opinion, everybody will kind of do this, everybody like will learn it the same way. They will need authentic experiences and authentic ways to show they've learned in many, many, many different ways, many modalities, because I don't learn the same way that you do. So I'm gonna have to assess in visual ways, kinesthetic ways, movement. I'm gonna use Gardner's multiple intelligences theory to help me design my assessments so that I can tap into everybody's, best ways of learning. And so I can assess them best way so that they succeed. If I know a student cannot sit down for 10 minutes to do an assessment with a paper and a pencil, why am I going to think that that's the best way to assess that student? And I know that student is going to fail because he or she cannot sit there for 10 minutes and do that assessment that way. If I have a conversation about the content, why can't I know if that student learned or not by having a conversation about the content? Why can't that be an alternative? Does that make sense? So there are ways that we can talk about this and do this. So authentic can be done in different ways, right? In cooperative ways, like the table said, instead of competition. That was like the opposite of it. Like right here. It says emphasize competition in the traditional way. Here emphasize cooperation. That's one of the ways that you can think about that. So as we go, we're gonna talk about the different ways. Okay, so I'm going to share with you right now about our assignments. So what we have going on is for each of the chapters that you read of our textbook, I would like you to do 2 inquiry questions and a chapter outline, okay? So there will be examples on Canvas for you under student examples or examples of assignments. I want your chapter outlines to be short, concise, and to the point. Bulleted points will be great. I want you to add page numbers for reference so that you remember where you got the information, at, and then you can go back and read more if you need more information about those specific topics. Believe me, you're gonna thank me later. And the inquiry questions, you're like, what are inquiry questions, Angela? So basically after reading the chapter, I want you to think about the main themes, the main ideas of the whole chapter. And I want you to create 2 questions, 2 open-ended questions that you cannot answer with a yes or no as your answer, right? It's like, do you like coffee? Yes. Okay, not that kind of question, right? Do you like assessment? No. Okay, not that kind of question. I want you to be answering a question like, what is authentic assessment? So I want you to be creating a question such as the question, what is authentic assessment, and provide me with examples. So I want you to create something like that somebody else in class would be able to answer, okay? Every time you read a chapter, you have to create 2 high-level questions and a short outline. It doesn't have to be too short, okay? It can be what you need. Don't go too crazy and have too many details, just enough details that you remember the main content of that chapter. You can add images from the internet to your chapter outline, make it visual for yourself, make it beautiful, add graphs and colors, make it beautiful, okay? Show me that you're excited, okay? That's all I need you to do. And then of course, turn them in as you go on Canvas when they're due. What to use for your inquiry questions? You can use what we call the Bloom's taxonomy, questioning levels, or the closest level of questioning. So there's this document that combines both. So basically, you can say something more like, what are the main idea? What are the facts about blah, blah, blah? Or what does this word mean? Like, you could ask a question that is very simple about a vocabulary word. So something for you to remember or recall an idea. That would be like, you could easily find in a textbook, versus saying something like high level, that would be like, oh, you could say, create a chart comparing and contrasting. So it'd be like right at the end, like of your, right here, right at the end of this side, right here on the on your right side of your screen. Create a chart comparing authentic assessment and traditional assessment. So when you're creating your inquiry questions, you can like make them be high level. So this graph that I have on our screen, that you can actually take a screenshot if you want with your phone, or just a screenshot in your computer. Think about how you're going to use those 3 levels if you're using as Costa's levels, or 6 if you're thinking of Bloom's. Bloom uses as knowledge, comprehension, sorry, right here. Remembering, so knowledge and remembering, comprehension, understanding, application, applying, analyzing, analysis, synthesis, creating, or evaluation, evaluating. How are you going to choose every time you read a chapter, not just easy questions like remembering, like regurgitating the content back, you know, like what are the 3 things the book said about this? You're more like, oh, create a chart about blah, blah, blah. So you're going to try to mix and match, maybe a simpler one with a more difficult one, like the high level one. And then your 2 questions will be really good. Okay, so try to use this kind of graph to guide your inquiry questions if possible, if you can. Okay, like some verbs right here: predict, reorganize, or revise. Here you can have words like give reasons why, blah, 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 blah. Compare and contrast, determine how many, blah, blah, blah. Like down here, relate, how many, you know, or relate this experience. Demonstrate, using examples, how assessments can. So use those words from this page to help you. Okay, like for the lower levels, it would be name or group, identify the main ideas of the chapter, point, say, like underline, things like that. So you get the idea, right? So make sure that your question is a very high level question that people actually have to think about when they answer. They have to at least think, go back to the book, read a little bit more to be able to answer the question. Make sure that you know how to answer your own question, okay? That's important. And then the most important thing is keep calm and see you next class. All right, you got this. Thank you for watching. And if you have any trouble, don't hesitate to post on the S3 before me. I'm going to be posting examples of inquiry questions so that you know what I'm talking about, okay? And then also examples of the outline for you. So you're like, oh, okay, this is so easy, I got this. And the inquiry questions too are gonna be so easy. You're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I think Angela complicated this last slide. All right, thank you for watching and see you next class. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.